right, it's Friday, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Edible RX, the podcast that teaches autoimmune warriors to use anti-inflammatory food as medicine. But quickly, before we get into the episode, if you're new here, hi there. I'm Laura Rodriguez, holistic chef, autoimmune warrior, and creator of the Flare Free Academy. In 2015, I started using anti-inflammatory food as medicine to manage the symptoms of my rheumatoid arthritis, and I saw great success. But my healing journey wasn't a linear one. It had many twists and turns along the way. And throughout all of it, I learned that in order for me to stay well, I have to stay consistent. That's why I created the Flare Free Academy, an online community of autoimmune warriors and foodies working hard to heal from within. And healing from within doesn't stop with food, guys. It goes way beyond that. And we get into all of it right here on the podcast, with interviews from functional medical professionals and fellow autoimmune warriors, more in-depth info on my own personal journey, and so much more. I believe there's power in hearing people's stories. Not only does it help you see what's possible for yourself, but it also encourages you to do the hard work that's required to actually see the results that you want. Ultimately, helping you on your journey helps me stay on mine. I'm living proof that diet and lifestyle is medicine and healing is possible. You just have to have the right tools, guidance, support, and resources to make it happen. And that's what this podcast is all about. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, today on the podcast, we are talking about, can food fight inflammation? If so, which ones? And I'm going to be sharing my own personal testimony along with some testimonies of some of my students. So let's get into it, guys. The research is there. Diet plays a huge role in the management and reversal of chronic inflammation. I've linked some articles in the show notes for you so that you can do more research on your own when you have time. But just to give you a quick overview, here are some of my favorite facts that I found when I was doing my research for this episode. According to an article from 2021 by Harvard Health, one of the most powerful tools to combat inflammation comes not from the pharmacy, but from the grocery store. As clinical dietitian Laura Sneed explains in an article for Johns Hopkins Medicine, she wrote, "Chronic systemic inflammation is a serious health concern that can be made worse or better with diet." And lastly, according to an article entitled 8 Food Ingredients That Can Cause Inflammation by the Arthritis Foundation, building a healthy, holistic dietary pattern can help lower your risk of inflammatory disease and transform your health. So there you have it. The research is there. Food does contribute to inflammation and therefore the reversal of it. If you're wondering which foods can fight inflammation, as per Laura Sneed's article for Johns Hopkins, she said, while there's no research to suggest that there's one specific diet that you should embrace to fight inflammation, a lot of research points to adapting something similar to the Mediterranean diet as being beneficial. So according to my research, I've gathered a list of 12 things that you should try to eat less of, if not avoid altogether, if you want to fight inflammation. Number 1, highly processed and packaged foods. So that would be like your rice-a-roni, your hamburger helper, anything that comes like in a package that's, baked, like baked goods, cereal, granola bars, things like that. Processed red meat. So like, your salami, your bacon, your ham, things like that. Refined nut and seed oils. So these would be your industrially refined, vegetable oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, etc. Margarine. So margarine is basically all of those inflammatory, industrially refined nut and seed oils put into like a solid form. So this would include even your vegan butter alternatives like Earth Balance. If you flip it over and read the back of the package, it literally is like soybean oil, okay? And so it's not really butter. Fast food, fried foods, soda and sugary drinks, refined carbohydrates. So that would be like anything made with white flour or white bread or flour tortillas, white pasta, white rice, white potatoes, pastries, etc. Gluten from wheat-based products like pasta, bread, pastries, and then also there are some grains that are whole grains, and you wouldn't know that they were actually wheat-based grains like farro, couscous, barley, and rye. Casein, which comes from dairy, sugar, and then alcohol. I know what you're thinking. Like, what in the world can I eat? I know. But eating anti inflammatory isn't just about what you can't eat. In fact, I'd say it's more important to focus on what you need to add into your diet than what you need to take out. Because the truth of the matter is, the standard American diet is devoid of nutrients. And most of us suffering from autoimmunity and other inflammation related conditions desperately need to increase our intake of nutrient dense foods. So here's a list of nutrient dense foods to eat to beat inflammation from the recommended Mediterranean diet: a wide variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, extra virgin olive oil, nuts and seeds, beans and legumes, whole grains, herbs and spices. These ingredients are naturally full of powerful vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, polyphenols, omega-3s, fiber, prebiotics, and probiotics, all which fight inflammation, help to build a healthy gut microbiome, fight free radicals, and build healthy cells, which are all things that we need to keep our inflammation low and our immune system strong. So here's a list of some popular anti-inflammatory foods, some of the top anti-inflammatory foods. And you're going to identify with a lot of these, and you may even eat a lot of these already. Tomatoes, broccoli, green leafy vegetables, blueberries, fatty fish, extra virgin olive oil, turmeric, green tea, walnuts, whole grains. So how does flare-free differ from this, right? So flare-free goes slightly above and beyond the Mediterranean diet, because if you know anything about the Mediterranean diet, there's a lot of dairy and a lot of gluten, right? They eat a lot of pasta, a lot of bread, a lot of cheese. And we don't do that in the Flare Free Academy. So we go a little bit above and beyond the Mediterranean diet by incorporating some of the ingredients most recommended by the top functional medical professionals around the globe who prescribe food as medicine, like Dr. Will Cole, Dr. Mark Hyman, etc. Now, when it comes to each ingredient, it really can get super nuanced, and I don't want to overwhelm you or confuse you. I have a whole mini course on how to transform your pantry into an anti-inflammatory healing powerhouse so you can make all of your favorite meals flare-free, and that will really teach you the nuances of each individual ingredient, which is the best dairy-free milk, which is the best vegan butter, which is the best gluten-free flour, right? But for the purpose of this podcast, I just want to say this. Flare-free means gluten, dairy, sugar, corn, soy, peanut-free, and anti-inflammatory comfort food. So I've taken out some of the main, most common allergens and then things that also cause me to flare up so that I can live healthy and serve you guys really delicious food. And then also I can reach a larger population of people that maybe are allergic to peanuts or soy or what have you, right? But the whole premise of Flare Free is not to make you learn to love anti inflammatory foods, but to make the foods that you love anti inflammatory. Because autoimmunity is a lifelong condition, and even if you were to reverse your condition through diet and lifestyle, you can't go back to eating the standard American diet because that's just going to make you relapse, right? So make the foods you love in a way that loves you back so that you're excited about eating this way forever, so that you can stay well forever. So that means going above and beyond what the standard, Mediterranean diet suggests and getting things like pastured meat and good quality vegan dairy alternatives and good quality low glycemic gluten alternatives and so on and so forth. Now, the easiest and absolute quickest way to eat flare free without getting overwhelmed about the ingredients and what should I include and what shouldn't I eat is to simply follow my recipes. And I have lots of them available for you on my website. But if you're a seasoned cook and you'd like to experiment with some of the best tasting ingredients on the market, you can also just start by making your favorite recipes. I suggest starting with a list of your top 10 favorite recipes and swapping out the inflammatory ingredients. You can go back to that list that I put here earlier as a reference and replace them with their anti-inflammatory counterparts, right? And so I will link a blog post in the show notes so that you can see these lists printed out, and you can print out that blog post if you need to. So here's a list of the ingredients that I use inside the Flare Free Academy. Colorful in-season produce. Organic if it's on the Dirty Dozen list. So we know that pesticides can contribute to toxin overburden, which can cause flare-ups and the onset of autoimmunity. And so if it's on the Dirty Dozen list, which is a list of ingredients put out by the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, every year, those are the produce every year that are sprayed the most profusely with pesticides. Okay, so we'll always try to reach for organic if it's on the Dirty Dozen list. I recommend organic across the board if you can find it and afford it. But at the bare minimum, if you can't afford to eat all organic, then go ahead and shop the Dirty Dozen list in organic just to lessen your intake of those highly pesticide-laden foods, right? And I emphasize in-season produce because the closer you eat food, when you eat food that is as close to the source as possible, meaning it was harvested recently, it was harvested nearby if possible, you're going to get the most nutrients out of that. So rather than trying to eat a tomato in February, maybe you'll try to eat the bulk of your tomatoes during tomato season, that sort of thing. All right, organic pastured lean meat and eggs. So this would be like grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, organic pastured turkey, and organic pastured chicken. Now, we do pepper in some uncured prosciutto and uncured sugar-free bacon now and again, but we do try to stay away from pork. I think in 2 years of writing recipes for the Flare Free Academy, I only put one pastured pork recipe on in 2 years. Wild seafood. This would be anything on the package that says it was not farmed, right? It wouldn't say farmed and it wouldn't say Atlantic. Usually wild seafood comes from the Pacific Ocean and it will have to say wild on it. If you want to take it a step further, you'll choose something that was also sustainably harvested just because, the oceans are overfished. Organic gluten-free grains. So this would be things like quinoa, brown rice, black rice, any type of rice, amaranth, millet, etc. Organic beans and legumes. I usually reach for, if you don't have time and energy to cook from dry, 100% totally understand. I usually reach for something that either comes in a jar, in a box, or in a BPA-free can. Raw nuts and seeds. I say raw because if you flip around the package of a lot of the roasted and salted nuts on the market, you'll see that they're coated in inflammatory oils like soybean oil, canola oil, safflower oil, etc. And you want to stay away from that as much as you can. And then last but not least, soy-free vegan dairy. I always try to look for good, clean varieties. So ones that don't have a lot of ingredients. The ingredients are easily identifiable. And we want to look for ones that don't contain those toxic inflammatory oils as best as we can. All right, so next I wanted to share with you how Flare Free has helped me and helped my students. When I was first starting eating Flare Free in 2015, I couldn't lift the containers of meals off of the counter high enough to get them in their cooler bags at work without horrible pains in my elbows and wrists. After just 3 months of eating Flare Free, not only did that horrible joint pain go away, but so did my chronic migraines and eczema. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my healing journey wasn't a linear one. I went on to develop a number of different conditions throughout the years, like adrenal fatigue, insulin resistance, gut dysbiosis, and I suffered from toxic mold syndrome a couple times. But the thing that helped me get through all of this the most, despite, each of these conditions having very different healing protocols, was eating Flare Free. That's because throughout it all, if I could control my diet and keep my inflammation low and keep my gut healthy, I was able to do the work that was required for the healing protocol for whatever I was treating a lot easier. My immune system was stronger, my gut was healthier, and my inflammation was lower. When I look back on it, I would have periods of time where I would cook and eat whatever I needed to for work. Some of the food projects I worked on were the absolute furthest thing from Flare Free. And I would flare up horribly just from tasting the food that I was cooking at work. Then I would turn back to eating Flare Free to get well again. And I did this time and time and again until finally I was tired of the roller coaster ride of food-driven autoimmune flare-ups that I was experiencing due to work. And I ultimately decided to just go all in on myself and to build my business around what I need to eat to stay well versus just cooking whatever my clients want. So now I can stay consistent on my healing journey, live out my life's passion, which is cooking and serving people, and serve my clients the food that they crave, all whilst helping other autoimmune warriors do the same for themselves at home. So not only has eating flare-free helped me physically with my health, helped me stay consistent throughout my healing journey, helped me heal various conditions more rapidly, it's also helped me emotionally and professionally. I'm much more in alignment now, and I get so much joy and fulfillment from helping people use food as medicine. It's way better than just working for celebrities and professional athletes and catering fancy parties. And all of this simultaneously helps me to keep my immune system strong and my inflammation low. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Stress can induce flares, stress can cause autoimmunity, and so much more. And now that I am living more in alignment and serving my purpose, I just don't have as much stress as I used to. So those are just a few ways that eating flare-free has helped me. It has helped my family, it's helped my husband, it's helped so many of my clients. So I want to share a few of their testimonies with you right now as well. So like Gemma, who was very skeptical of the benefits of eating flare-free at first, she gave it a try anyway. And within a few months, I remember her messaging me and being like, I was really skeptical of eating gluten and dairy-free, but I can already feel the benefits. It has helped me more than the infusions I have to get for Crohn's. Less digestive issues and no more bloating. No more pain from eating is the best. So this was a Crohn's warrior, y'all. If you know anything about Crohn's, IBS, ulcerative colitis, these are some serious digestive related conditions that are very painful and they are relentless. And she was able to get more relief from eating flare-free than the infusions she was getting for her condition. That is amazing. Another student, Catherine, said, my CRP number, those are your inflammation numbers, dropped a ton after only 9 weeks of eating flare-free. I've learned a lot and I'm finding the value both externally and internally in eating this way. So she may have maybe was starting to fit in her clothes a little bit better, maybe lost a little bit of weight, maybe the puffiness kind of subsided, in addition to her inflammation markers at her doctor dropping in a big way. And finally, Sandy said, I went to a new doctor, and when she did my blood work, she came in and goes, you're like the healthiest person ever. Tell me your secrets. And I told her your recipes. She kept stressing the inflammation markers being excellent. And seriously, I credit a lot of that with making huge strides in the last year in the way that I eat, thanks to you. So you can see eating flare-free has helped fight inflammation for my clients and for myself in a big, big way, and it can do it for you too. These are just a few examples of the many autoimmune warriors who have put in the hard work to change their diet and to heal from within and have seen the results that they wanted. And there are many, many more. If you'd like to hear more, follow me on Instagram at Chef Laura Rodriguez. I share new feedback as it comes in, and I even have a highlight on my profile dedicated to past testimonials. So definitely check that out. If you've been on the fence about changing your diet because you're not sure it'll work, stay tuned for a fun live workshop I'll be hosting at the end of the month that will teach you everything you need to know to get started using flare-free food consistently with ease, long enough to lessen the symptoms of your condition so that you can try it for yourself. And who knows, you may even be my next success story. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Edible RX, the podcast that teaches autoimmune warriors to use diet and lifestyle as medicine. If you found this podcast episode helpful, please leave a rating or a review wherever you're listening to this right now. I'd really appreciate it, and it will help other autoimmune warriors find the podcast. This is Laura Rodriguez signing off for today. Until next week, eat your damn vegetables. Bye!